Joining me now is Senator Tammy Duckworth, a Democrat from Illinois, of course, sort of Chicago, experienced something somewhat similar to this, not quite on the scale of what we've seen in the Twin Cities. Senator, it's good to have you. I mean, first, just what you saw in Chicago up close and what you're seeing out of Minnesota is informing what your approach to this is as a legislator, as a politician, as a citizen.
Well, what we saw in Chicago led me to actually put out an announcement last week that I was not going to vote for this budget. There's not another day that's going to go by that I'm going to vote to fund ICE any further. In Chicago, they shot and killed one person. They shot another woman who survived, but she was shot something like 6 or 7 times. They pepper sprayed children. They shot a priest who was praying for them in the head with pepper bullets from a sniper position 3 stories above the priest. And now you see that they're out there murdering people in Minneapolis. So we have to rein ICE in. And this simply is not acceptable on the streets of our cities.
So currently, just in the last few hours, is a little complicated. There's basically a number of funding bills that, unlike, I want to just set the table for people so people understand. The last shutdown were these basically continuing resolution that was entirely negotiated by Republicans. They just came up with it, and that's where they didn't extend the subsidies. There's a big shutdown fight. This time's a bit different. These appropriations bills have gone through what's called regular order. They've come through committees. They have been negotiated in a bipartisan fashion. Yes. They restore some funding in some of these agencies that have been cut that have been important to Democrats. There's a number of them. My understanding right now is that a deal has been cut to vote on 5 of them and to keep the DHS one separate and vote for a 2-week, basically, continuation of that DHS funding. Do I have that right?
That's my understanding of the deal, Chris, but as of right now, I have not seen the final text of it. Leadership has worked out a deal, but I'm waiting to see exactly what it actually says. And remember, 2 weeks extension of the funding for DHS is a time for us to be able to negotiate for several things, which Democrats have made it clear. There are 3 main things we want. We want to get Border Patrol out of our cities and back on the border. Did you know that right now they're allowed to range 100 air miles from the border, and Lake Michigan is considered a border? We want to make sure that there are independent investigations of ICE, and also no more masks and no more body cams. Those are 3 very simple things that Democrats have asked for.
The one thing I've been thinking about this, because in some ways, even if you get that written into law, will they obey it seems unlikely. I mean, I keep saying this, but the Epstein Files law got passed with essentially unanimously and signed by Donald Trump, and they're now 40 days into completely ignoring it. It does seem to me the central thing, though, if I could just say what people in Minnesota were saying, and I think you would agree in Chicago, is that this notion of the combination of the masks with the kind of roving violation of basic constitutional protections, the Fourth Amendment, to name just one, where they just roll up on a car because they see someone who they think is brown or black, not white, and they grab people in parking lots, or that aspect of it feels like both the most different and the most vicious, and the thing that's most important to stop, if that makes sense. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This is they're doing it based on the Kavanaugh. We're calling those Kavanaugh stops, right? It's a Justice Kavanaugh ruling that DHS is allowed to target individuals based solely on their accents or ethnicities. And by the way, a recent memo, a secret memo from acting ICE Director Todd Lyons was recently leaked that says that they've decided on their own that they may now enter homes and residences without consent to conduct arrests based solely on these administrative warrants that are just signed by an ICE official, not a judicial warrant. So absolutely, the Trump administration just ignores the Constitution, ignores the law, and they try to establish new precedents, right? And we can't allow them to do that.
So that memo, by the way, that you just noted was, I think, drafted in May, recently leaked, just so people have the timeline on that. I guess you haven't looked at it yet, but I mean, I guess there's some argument that in moving the DHS out of the other bundle, it increases leverage for Senate Democrats, because it would be very hard to hold the caucus together if there was a full shutdown of all the other agencies. Are you going to vote for this deal, do you think? The president is endorsing it right now. Leadership seems to be behind it.
Yeah, I'm going to wait for the text and see what it says. But I will tell you that I was a no vote on Friday when it was the whole package still, despite. And I have concerns also with the DoD funding piece because I feel like they have completely abused our nation's military, our military men and women, and the egregious use of the National Guard against governors' consent into our cities. They occupied Chicago. And so I'm going to take a long, hard look as whether or not I can be a yes vote on any of this.
You just used the word occupied Chicago, the use of the National Guard. I want to ask you, as someone who served our country and served in theater of war, like to hear an American federal official describe agents of the government as being in theater in Minneapolis or other cities, how that struck your ears.
Well, it sickened me because this is the Midwest. This is our cities, and listen, if it's Chicago, if it's Minneapolis, it could be your city next. And literally, what struck me, Chris, I had more stringent rules of engagement when I was in Iraq about what I could do to civilians there than ICE does with the citizens on the streets of our cities today.
Wow, Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Thank you so much for making some time with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.